The red neon of Murphy's Tavern flickered irregularly on the worn brick facade, casting dancing shadows on the wet sidewalk of Baltimore. It was one of those October nights when fine rain transformed the streets into dark mirrors, reflecting the city lights like tears that never quite fell completely. The wind carried the salty scent of Chesapeake Bay, mixed with the aroma of coffee and cigarettes escaping from the bars and restaurants of the Fells Point neighborhood. Elena Rossi wiped the same glass for the third time, her movements automatic and precise, the result of 5 years serving drinks in that small refuge for dock workers, college students, and occasional lost tourists. At 28, she had perfected the art of looking busy, even when the bar was nearly empty, like this rainy Tuesday that dragged on with the speed of cold molasses. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, some rebellious strands framing her face with delicate features, marked by a determination that few dared to challenge. Her green eyes, which once sparkled with dreams of a different life, now carried a calculated coldness, an invisible barrier that kept the world at a safe distance. "Elena, dear, you're going to drill a hole through that glass if you keep scrubbing like that," joked Murphy, the 65-year-old Irish owner, emerging from the kitchen with a plate of fish and chips that no one had ordered. His graying hair was even more disheveled than usual, and his grease-stained apron told the story of another day of hard work. "Sorry, Murphy. I was thinking," she replied, placing the glass in its spot and grabbing a cloth to clean the dark wooden bar, polished by decades of leaning elbows and sliding glasses. "Thinking is dangerous for a girl like you, especially when it involves that idiot Brad," Murphy said, his voice carrying the Irish accent he had never lost. Even after 40 years in Baltimore, Elena stopped cleaning for a moment, her fingers tightening around the cloth. Brad. 3 months had passed since she discovered the messages on his phone, since she saw the photos, since her world crumbled for the second time in 5 years. The first time had been with Michael, her college fiancé, who decided that a career on Wall Street was more important than the plans they had made together. "I'm not thinking about him," she lied, returning to clean the bar with more vigorous movements. "I'm thinking about how I'm going to pay rent this month." Murphy watched her with those faded blue eyes that had seen a lot in life. He had found Elena 5 years ago, crying on a bench at the Inner Harbor after Michael had left. He offered her a job without asking questions, and she had become not only his best employee, but almost like a daughter to the man who never had a family of his own. "Business is slow indeed," Murphy admitted, looking around the nearly empty bar. Only 3 customers. Tommy, a retired stevedore who came every night to drink his Guinness and complain about the Ravens. Sarah, a nursing student from Johns Hopkins, who studied while drinking coffee. And Mr. Peterson, an accountant who always ordered whiskey, neat, and never talked to anyone. The doorbell rang, bringing a gust of cold air and the sound of rain that had intensified. Elena automatically looked up, preparing her professional smile, but the words of welcome died in her throat. The man who entered didn't look like the usual customers at Murphy's. Tall, probably in his mid-30s, he wore a dark gray suit that cost more than Elena's salary in 3 months. His black hair was perfectly styled despite the rain, and when he removed his wool overcoat, he revealed broad shoulders and a posture that exuded natural authority. But it was his eyes that made her swallow hard. Blue like winter ice, they swept the environment with the precision of someone accustomed to assessing threats and opportunities in seconds. When his gaze met hers, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold of the night. "Good evening," he said, his deep voice carrying only a slight accent she couldn't identify. He approached the bar with measured steps, each movement calculated and elegant. "Good evening. What can I serve you?" Elena replied, her voice coming out rougher than intended. She cleared her throat discreetly, annoyed with herself for reacting that way. He sat on a stool in the middle of the bar, away from the other customers, and studied the drink options on the wall behind her. "Bourbon, the best you have." Elena reached for the bottle of Blanton's on the top shelf, aware that he was watching her every move. She served 2 generous shots in the crystal glass, adding an ice cube according to tradition. "First time here?" she asked, placing the glass in front of him. It was an automatic question, part of the script she had developed over the years, but this time there was genuine curiosity behind it. "First time in Baltimore," he replied, taking the glass and slowly rotating it between his fingers. "Business." "What kind of business brings someone like you to a place like this?" Elena asked, then immediately regretted the question. It was too personal, too direct, but there was something about him that awakened her dormant curiosity. An almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "Someone like me?" Elena felt heat rise up her neck. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just that you don't seem like the type of person who frequents neighborhood bars." "And what type of person do I seem to be?" he asked, bringing the glass to his lips and taking a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. "Rich, powerful, dangerous." The words came out before she could censor them, and Elena felt her cheeks flush. This time the smile was more evident. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Before Elena could ask which of the 3 was wrong, Murphy appeared beside her, drying his hands on his apron. There was something different in his posture, a tension that Elena rarely saw in the normally relaxed Irishman. "Everything all right here?" Murphy asked, but his eyes were fixed on the stranger, studying him with an intensity that made Elena frown. "Perfectly fine," the man replied, his voice maintaining the same calm tone. "Excellent bourbon. My compliments." Murphy nodded slowly but didn't move away. "Haven't seen you around here before." "As I told the young lady, first time in Baltimore." "And what brings you to our city?" Murphy insisted, and Elena realized there was more to this conversation than it appeared. "Meetings. Nothing very interesting," the stranger replied, finishing his bourbon and placing a $50 bill on the bar. "Keep the change." Elena looked at the bill, then at him. "That's too much." "For excellent service," he interrupted, standing up and putting on his overcoat. "I hope to return soon." He headed for the door, but stopped and looked over his shoulder. "By the way, my name is Dante Romano." And then he left, leaving only the echo of the doorbell and the subtle aroma of his expensive cologne mixed with the smell of rain. Elena stood staring at the door for a long moment, her heart beating faster than it should. When she finally turned around, she found Murphy watching her with a worried expression. "Elena," he said, his voice low and serious. "That man. You need to be careful." "Why? Do you know him?" Murphy shook his head slowly. "Not personally, but I know the type, and the Romano surname. In certain parts of the city, that name means trouble." Elena felt a chill in her stomach. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that a girl like you should avoid at all costs," Murphy replied, taking the $50 bill and examining it as if it were evidence of a crime. "Promise me you'll be careful, Elena. Promise me you won't get involved with this man." Elena looked at the door once more, remembering Dante's blue eyes and the way her heart had accelerated when he smiled. There was something about him that awakened a part of her that she had sworn to keep buried forever. "I promise," she lied, knowing even as she spoke the words that it was a promise she might not be able to keep. The rest of the night passed in a fog of confused thoughts. Elena served the last drinks, cleaned the tables, and closed the bar with Murphy, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about Dante Romano, about his blue eyes and mysterious smile. She was thinking about the way he had said his name, as if it were something precious. When she finally arrived at her small apartment on the 2nd floor of a Victorian building in Federal Hill, Elena sat by the window overlooking the inner harbor. The city lights reflected on the dark water, and she could see the ships anchored in the port, their masts swaying gently with the tide. She had sworn never to make herself vulnerable again, never again to allow a man to have the power to destroy her. After Michael, after Brad, she had built walls around her heart that she thought were impenetrable. But there was something about Dante Romano that scared her, not because he was dangerous, although Murphy clearly believed he was, but because for the first time in years, she had felt something beyond the protective coldness she had cultivated. Elena pressed her forehead against the cold window glass and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be another day, Another night at Murphy's, another opportunity to keep her life simple and safe. But deep in her heart, a part of her that had remained silent for too long whispered a dangerous question. What if Dante Romano came back? And an even more dangerous part whispered back, what if she wanted him to come back? The rain continued falling over Baltimore, washing the streets and carrying away the secrets of the night. But some secrets Elena was about to discover were more persistent than rain, and some encounters changed the course of a life forever. While the city slept, Elena remained awake, looking at the lights dancing on the water, not knowing that her life had just taken a completely new direction, and that the blue-eyed man who had entered her bar carried with him a world of possibilities and dangers she couldn't even imagine. The first chapter of her new story had begun, and there was no going back. 3 days had passed since Dante Romano's visit to Murphy's Tavern, and Elena discovered it was impossible to get him out of her head. Every time the doorbell rang, her heart raced in anticipation of seeing those blue eyes again. Every time she served bourbon, she remembered the elegant way he had held the glass, as if each gesture were a carefully executed work of art. It was Thursday night, and business was a little better than the previous days. The Baltimore Ravens had won the night before, which always put customers in better moods and willing to spend more. Elena moved between tables with practiced efficiency, balancing trays and memorizing orders, but part of her mind remained on the door, waiting. "Elena, table 4 is asking for another round," shouted Jenny, the other waitress, a 22-year-old blonde who studied theater at the University of Maryland and dreamed of moving to New York. Jenny had the tireless energy of youth and the flirting ability that Elena had lost long ago. "Coming," Elena replied, finishing cleaning table 2 and heading to the bar to prepare the drinks. 2 whiskey sours, a natty Bow beer, the local beer that every Baltimorean drank with pride, and a Cosmopolitan for the only woman in the group. While preparing the drinks, Elena noticed Murphy talking quietly with Detective Ray Sullivan near the entrance. Sullivan was a regular customer, a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes who had seen too much in his 20 years on the Baltimore police force. He usually came alone, drank beer, and watched games on TV, but today he seemed tense, worried. Elena couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw Murphy shake his head several times and discreetly point to the bar where Dante had sat 3 nights ago. A shiver ran down her spine. Could Dante's visit have caused more problems than she had imagined? "Elena," Murphy called her, interrupting her thoughts. "Can you come here for a minute?" She handed the drinks to Jenny to take to table 4 and approached the 2 men. Sullivan greeted her with a nod, but his eyes remained serious. "Ray was asking me about our visitor from the other night," Murphy said, choosing his words carefully. "The man in the expensive suit." "Dante Romano," Elena said, and immediately regretted it when she saw the 2 men exchange meaningful looks. "So he did give his name," Sullivan murmured, taking a small notebook from his pocket. "Did he say anything else? About why he was in Baltimore? Who he was going to meet?" Elena felt a wave of defensiveness that surprised her. "He just said he was here on business. Why? Did he do something wrong?" Sullivan sighed, putting away the notebook. "Not exactly, but the Romano name is connected to certain activities we keep under surveillance. If he comes back, could you call me?" He handed her a card with his personal number. Elena took it, but didn't promise anything. There was something about the whole situation that didn't seem right. Dante had been polite, had left a generous tip, hadn't caused any problems. Why was the police interested in him? "Elena," Murphy said softly, "I know you're a good judge of character, but sometimes people aren't what they seem to be." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang again. Elena turned automatically and felt her heart stop for a moment. Dante Romano was back, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 men accompanied him. The first was shorter and stockier, with dark hair slicked back and a suit that, although expensive, didn't have the natural elegance of Dante's. His small dark eyes swept the bar, as if evaluating threats. The second was taller, thin, with a fine scar running from his left ear to the corner of his mouth. There was something predatory in his posture that made Elena instinctively step back. Sullivan murmured a word that Elena couldn't hear and discreetly headed for the back exit. Murphy, in turn, positioned himself behind the bar, his hand moving subtly below the cash register where Elena knew he kept a baseball bat. Dante saw Elena immediately and smiled, that same smile that had haunted her thoughts for the past 3 days. He headed to the bar, while his companions chose a table in the darkest corner of the bar, from where they could observe both the main entrance and the back exit. "Good evening, Elena," Dante said, and the way he pronounced her name made her momentarily forget the tension in the air. "Good evening," she replied, her voice firmer this time. "The usual, please," he said, sitting on the same stool from 3 nights ago. "And perhaps something for my associates. They're not very demanding." Elena served Dante's bourbon and approached the table where the 2 men waited. Up close, they were even more intimidating. The shorter one had hands that looked capable of breaking bones without effort, while the taller one watched her with eyes that made her feel like prey being evaluated by a predator. "What can I serve you?" she asked, keeping her voice professional. "Beer," said the shorter one, his voice rough as gravel. "Any kind. Whiskey. No ice?" added the taller one, his voice surprisingly soft, which somehow made it more threatening. Elena brought the drinks and returned to the bar, where Dante waited with a thoughtful expression. "You seem nervous," he observed, taking a sip of his bourbon. "I'm not nervous," Elena lied, cleaning a glass that was already clean. "Just surprised to see you again." "Good surprise or bad surprise?" The question caught her off guard. Elena looked at him, really looked, trying to decipher what she saw behind those blue eyes. There was intelligence there, and something that could be kindness, but also a hardness that suggested Dante Romano was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, regardless of the cost. "I'm still deciding," she replied honestly. Dante laughed, a low, rich sound that made something strange happen in Elena's stomach. "Honesty? That's rare in my world." "And what world is that?" Elena asked, although part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Dante studied her face for a long moment. "A complicated world. A world where trust is rare currency and loyalty is worth more than gold." Before Elena could respond, Murphy appeared beside her again. This time his tension was palpable. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice polite but firm, "I hope you're enjoying the drinks." "Excellent," Dante replied. But Elena noticed his eyes never left Murphy's. "You have a very welcoming establishment." "We try to keep things simple here," Murphy said. "No complications." "Complications can be avoided," Dante said softly, "when there's mutual understanding." Elena felt there was a conversation happening beneath the conversation, a dialogue of veiled threats and promises she couldn't fully decipher. The tension in the air was so thick she could almost touch it. "Elena," Murphy said without taking his eyes off Dante, "why don't you go check if table 6 needs anything?" It was clearly an excuse to get her away, but Elena didn't protest. She headed to table 6, where a college couple shared a pizza and talked about their weekend plans. They didn't need anything, but Elena pretended to organize the condiments on the table while trying to hear the conversation at the bar. "Don't want trouble," she heard Murphy say. "Neither do I," was Dante's response. "But sometimes trouble finds us, regardless of our intentions. This is a quiet neighborhood. People here like it to stay that way. I understand perfectly, and I respect that." Elena turned discreetly and saw Dante place another $50 bill on the bar. "To ensure we continue understanding each other." Murphy looked at the money, then at Dante. Slowly, he took the bill and put it in his pocket. "Mutual understanding," he repeated. Dante nodded and finished his bourbon. He stood up and made an almost imperceptible signal to his companions, who immediately finished their drinks and headed for the door. But before leaving, Dante approached Elena. "Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow night?" he asked, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Elena felt her heart race. All of Murphy's warnings, Sullivan's visit, the tension that had filled the bar, all of this should make her say no, should make her run in the opposite direction. Instead, she heard herself asking, "Where?" "The Prime Rib, 8 o'clock." The Prime Rib was one of Baltimore's most expensive restaurants, the kind of place Elena had never been to and probably could never afford. It was a completely different world from hers. "I don't have anything to wear to a place like that," she said, immediately regretting sounding so insecure. Dante smiled, and this time there was genuine tenderness in his expression. "You would look beautiful wearing a potato sack, Elena, but if you want, I can arrange something." "No," she said quickly. I'll figure it out." "So it's a yes?" Elena looked at Murphy, who was watching the interaction with an expression of concern and disapproval. She looked at the door through which Sullivan had left. She thought of all the reasons why she should say no. "Yes," she said, surprising herself. Dante's smile widened. "Until tomorrow, then." He leaned in, and for a moment, Elena thought he was going to kiss her. Instead, he whispered in her ear, "And Elena, wear something blue. It matches your eyes." And then he was gone, leaving Elena with her heart beating irregularly and the aroma of his expensive cologne floating in the air. Murphy approached her as soon as the door closed. "Elena, for God's sake, tell me you're not going out with this man." Elena touched the spot where Dante had whispered, still feeling the warmth of his breath on her skin. "I can't say that, Murphy," she replied softly, "because it would be a lie." Murphy shook his head, suddenly looking much older than his 65 years. "Then God help us," he murmured, "because you're playing with fire, girl, and men like Dante Romano, they burn everything they touch." Elena knew Murphy was right. She knew she was making a mistake that could change her life forever. But for the first time in years, she felt alive, awake, as if she were emerging from a long sleep. And if that meant playing with fire, so be it. She had spent too much time in the cold. The night continued, but Elena could barely concentrate on work. Her mind was on the next day, on the prime rib, on Dante Romano, and all the dangerous possibilities that dinner with him could bring. She didn't know that a few blocks away, Detective Sullivan was on the phone with the FBI, reporting Dante Romano's second appearance in Baltimore. She didn't know that Murphy was seriously considering closing the bar for a few weeks until things calmed down. And she certainly didn't know that Dante Romano, sitting in the back seat of a black Mercedes gliding through the wet streets of Baltimore, was smiling while thinking of her, planning not just a dinner, but a carefully orchestrated seduction that would change both their lives forever. The second chapter of Elena's story had begun, and there was no longer any way to pretend that her simple and safe life would remain untouched. Destiny, in the form of a blue-eyed man with dangerous secrets, had knocked at her door, and she had chosen to open it. Elena spent all of Friday in a state of anxiety that oscillated between excitement and absolute panic. She had asked Murphy for the afternoon off, inventing an excuse about a medical appointment, and now she was in her small apartment, looking at the sparse contents of her wardrobe as if it were an impossible puzzle to solve. 3 dresses were spread across the bed. A simple black one she wore for rare special occasions, a navy blue one she had bought on sale 2 years ago and never worn, and a dark green one that Jenny had lent her, insisting it brought out her eyes. None of them seemed adequate for the Prime Rib, a restaurant where she had heard the waiters wore tuxedos and a bottle of wine cost more than her monthly rent. Elena's apartment reflected her life for the past 5 years. Functional, clean, but devoid of any unnecessary luxury. The second-hand sofa she had bought at a garage sale, the dining table for 2 that rarely received visitors, the walls decorated only with some photographs of her family in Boston, and a cheap painting of a sunset over Chesapeake Bay. She had grown up in a middle-class family in Beacon Hill, where her father worked as an accountant and her mother was an elementary school teacher. Her parents had been devastated when she dropped out of law school to follow Michael to Baltimore, and even more devastated when the relationship ended and she decided to stay in the city, working as a waitress instead of returning home and starting over. Pride, her mother always said during their weekly phone conversations. Your pride will be your ruin, Elena. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe pride was really what kept her from returning to Boston, from admitting she had made a mistake, from accepting the help her parents constantly offered. Or maybe it was something more, a stubbornness that made her want to prove she could build a life on her own, even if it was a small and limited life. At 5 in the afternoon, Elena finally chose the navy blue dress. It was simple, but well cut, and Dante had said blue matched her eyes. She spent an hour getting ready, something she hadn't done in months, applying more elaborate makeup than usual, and letting her hair down in soft waves that framed her face. When she looked in the mirror, Elena almost didn't recognize herself. The woman staring back seemed younger, more vibrant, as if the last years of caution and self-preservation had been temporarily suspended. At 7:45, a black car stopped in front of her building. Elena watched from the window as a uniformed driver got out and headed to the entrance. A few minutes later, he knocked on her door. "Miss Rossi, Mr. Romano is waiting for you." The driver was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a military posture. He treated her with respectful courtesy that made her feel like she was someone important, someone worthy of such treatment. The car was a black Mercedes S-Class with beige leather interior and polished wood trim. Elena had never been in such a luxurious vehicle. As they glided through Baltimore's streets toward downtown, she observed the familiar landscape through the darkened windows, seeing her city from a completely new perspective. The prime rib was located in a historic building in Mount Vernon, an elegant neighborhood known for its 19th century architecture and sophisticated atmosphere. When the car stopped in front of the restaurant, Elena saw Dante waiting at the entrance, impeccable in a dark blue suit that probably cost more than she earned in 6 months. He approached the car when the driver opened the door for her, offering his hand to help her out. The touch of his fingers sent an electric current up Elena's arm, and she had to concentrate not to stumble. "You look stunning," Dante said, his blue eyes traveling over her face with an intensity that made her blush. "Thank you," Elena replied, suddenly conscious of every detail of her appearance, of every imperfection her makeup couldn't hide. Dante offered his arm, and together they entered the restaurant. The interior was even more impressive than Elena had imagined. Crystal chandeliers, dark wood panels, tables covered with immaculate white tablecloths, and fresh flower arrangements. The sound of low conversations and the discreet clinking of crystal and silver created an atmosphere of refined elegance. The maître d' led them to a table in a reserved corner, away from other customers. Elena noticed how the staff treated Dante, with a deference that went beyond simple professionalism. It was as if he was someone important, someone whose wishes were anticipated and attended to without question. "Do you come here often?" Elena asked after they sat down, and the sommelier had presented the wine list. "Occasionally," Dante replied, dismissing the list with a wave. "A bottle of the 2015 Barolo, please." Elena had no idea what Barolo was, but from the way the sommelier's eyes lit up, she suspected it was something expensive. Very expensive. "Dante," she said after they were alone, "I need to be honest with you. I don't belong in this world. I don't know which fork to use for which dish. I don't know the difference between wines, and I'll probably say something embarrassing before the night is over." Dante leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers. "Elena, do you think I care about any of those things? You should care. Look at this place, look at yourself. I'm just a waitress from a neighborhood bar." "You're much more than that," Dante said, his voice low and intense. "You have a strength that most people who frequent places like this will never have. You built a life on your own, survived disappointments that would break weaker people. That's worth more than any knowledge about etiquette or wines." Elena felt something move in her chest, an emotion she had kept carefully buried. "How do you know about my disappointments?" "It's in your eyes," Dante replied. "The same caution I see in my own eyes when I look in the mirror." The sommelier returned with the wine, executing the opening and tasting ritual with ceremonial precision. Dante approved with a nod, and their glasses were filled with a dark red liquid that gleamed in the candlelight. "Tell me about yourself," Elena said after tasting the wine, which was different from anything she had ever experienced. Rich, complex, with flavors that unfolded in layers. "About your family, your life." Dante swirled the wine in his glass, watching the liquid as if it contained secrets. "My family is complicated. My father built an empire, but empires always come with a price." "What kind of empire?" "Business, import, export, investments, things that require special relationships with certain people. Elena felt a shiver of apprehension. Special relationships? Dante studied her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Elena, there are things about my life that are complicated, things that could scare you. Try to scare me, she said, surprising herself with her own courage. Dante smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. My family is involved in businesses that don't always operate within conventional lines of the law. We have our own codes, our own rules. Loyalty is everything, and betrayal has consequences. Elena felt her heart race. You're talking about the Mafia. I'm talking about family, Dante corrected softly. About traditions that go back generations. About a world where a man's word is worth more than any legal contract. And you? Are you involved in these businesses? Dante took a sip of wine before answering. I'm the eldest son. Certain responsibilities come with that position. Elena should have gotten up at that moment, should have left the restaurant, returned to her simple and safe life. Instead, she leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know who I am before anything between us goes further. And if I say I don't care, what if I say I want to know the man behind the business? Dante looked at her with an intensity that made her feel as if he could see directly into her soul. Then I would say you're braver than you are smart. Or maybe I'm just a woman tired of living in fear. Dinner arrived. Filet mignon for him, salmon for her. But Elena could barely concentrate on the food. The conversation had taken a turn that changed everything, that transformed this night from a simple date into something much more significant. Tell me about your fears, Dante said, cutting his filet with precise movements. Elena hesitated, then decided to be as honest as he had been. I'm afraid of trusting again. My fiancé left me for a career on Wall Street. My last boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. I built walls around my heart because it's safer to be alone than to be destroyed again. And now? Now I'm sitting in an expensive restaurant with a man who just told me he's involved with the Mafia, and all I can think is that I want to get to know you better. So maybe I've completely lost my mind. Dante laughed, a genuine and warm sound. Maybe we've both lost our minds. They continued talking throughout the rest of dinner, the barriers between them gradually dissolving. Dante spoke about his childhood in Providence, about a father who was feared and respected in equal measure, about a mother who had died when he was 15 and who had tried to protect him from the world he was born into. Elena spoke about her abandoned dreams, about the feeling of being trapped in a life she hadn't consciously chosen, about the loneliness that had become her constant companion. Have you ever thought about leaving Baltimore? Dante asked while they shared a chocolate dessert that was more art than food. Every day, Elena admitted. But leave for where? To do what? I don't have money. I don't have special skills. I don't have a plan. What if you did? What if someone could offer all those things? Elena looked at him suspiciously. Are you offering? I'm asking if you would be interested if someone offered. That would depend on the price, Elena said carefully. Everything has a price. Smart, Dante murmured. Yes, everything has a price. The question is whether you would be willing to pay it. Before Elena could ask what price that would be, Dante's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, and his expression changed instantly, becoming hard and alert. Sorry, he said, standing up. I need to take this. Elena watched him move to a more reserved corner of the restaurant, speaking in a low voice, but with an urgency that was impossible to ignore. When he returned a few minutes later, there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. Everything okay? Elena asked. Business problems, Dante replied, but his eyes were distant, calculating. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut our night short. Elena felt a pang of disappointment but nodded. Of course, I understand. Dante signaled to the waiter, who brought the check discreetly. Elena didn't even see the amount, but she noticed that Dante left a tip that was probably larger than her weekly salary. In the car, the atmosphere had changed. Dante was clearly worried about something, and Elena could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. When they arrived at her building, he walked her to the door. Elena, he said, stopping at the entrance, Tonight meant a lot to me. To me too, she replied, and realized it was true. Despite all the revelations, despite all the warning signs, she had felt more alive in those few hours than in years. Dante leaned in, and this time he kissed her. It was a soft kiss, almost hesitant, as if he were asking permission. Elena responded, allowing herself to feel the connection she had been denying herself. When they separated, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "I want to see you again." "I want that too," Elena whispered. "But Elena, things might get complicated. My world isn't safe for people like you. Let me decide what's safe for me," she replied, surprising herself with her own determination. Dante smiled, but there was concern in his eyes. "You're stronger than you look." "I have to be." He kissed her once more, quickly, then stepped away. "I'll call you." Elena watched him get in the car and disappear into the night. She went up to her apartment with her heart beating fast and her mind spinning with everything that had happened. She had crossed a line that night, had entered a world she didn't fully understand. Dante Romano was dangerous. He had admitted it himself. But for the first time in years, Elena felt truly alive. As she prepared for sleep, she didn't know that a few blocks away, Dante was in an emergency meeting with his associates, discussing a threat that had emerged against his family. She didn't know that her safety had become a concern for him, or that he was already taking measures to protect her. And she certainly didn't know that Detective Sullivan had photographed the two of them leaving the restaurant, and that those photos were now in a folder marked Evidence on a federal agent's desk. The third chapter of Elena's story had ended, but the consequences of her choices were just beginning to unfold. She had tasted Dante Romano's world and discovered it was a flavor she couldn't forget. But some flavors, she was about to learn, were addictive. And some addictions had a price that was impossible to predict. Elena woke up Saturday morning with a strange feeling that her life had changed irreversibly during the night. The apartment seemed the same. The same light filtered through cheap curtains. The same smell of coffee from the neighboring apartment. The same sounds of the city waking up outside. But she felt different, as if a dormant part of herself had been awakened by Dante's kiss and the previous night's revelations. She spent the morning trying to keep busy, cleaning the apartment that was already clean, organizing drawers that were already organized, anything to avoid thinking about the blue-eyed man who had admitted to being involved with the Mafia and then kissed her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Around noon, her phone rang. Elena looked at the screen and saw a number she didn't recognize, but something in her heart already knew who it was. "Hello? Elena?" Dante's voice sounded different on the phone, more tense, more urgent. "I need to see you." "Now?" "Yes, there are some things I need to explain, some things that have happened since last night." Elena felt a chill in her stomach. "What kind of things?" "Not over the phone. Can I pick you up in an hour?" Elena looked around her apartment, then at the mirror where she could see her reflection. Disheveled hair, no makeup, wearing an old t-shirt and faded jeans. She was the opposite of the elegant woman who had dined at the Prime Rib the night before. "I'm not presentable." "Elena, you would look beautiful wearing anything." "1 hour." "All right." After hanging up, Elena rushed to the shower, her mind spinning with possibilities. What could have happened in less than 12 hours that required an urgent conversation? What kind of business problems were so serious they couldn't wait? She was finishing getting dressed when she heard a knock at the door. It was exactly 1 hour since the call. Dante was a man who respected schedules. Elena opened the door and found not Dante, but the same driver from the previous night. "Miss Rossi, Mr. Romano is waiting for you in the car." Elena went downstairs and found Dante in the back seat of the Mercedes, but he looked completely different from the relaxed and charming man from the night before. There was a tension in his shoulders, a hardness in his eyes that made her hesitate before getting in the car. "Thank you for coming," he said as soon as she sat down. "I know you must be confused." "Confused is a mild word," Elena replied, studying his face. "You look different. A lot has changed since last night." The car began to move, leaving Elena's neighborhood and heading to a part of the city she didn't recognize. They passed the inner harbor, then climbed toward the hills surrounding Baltimore, where large, isolated houses hid behind high gates and well-maintained gardens. "Where are we going?" Elena asked. "A place where we can talk without being interrupted," Dante replied. "Elena, I need you to understand that everything changed after last night. Not just between us, but the whole situation became more complicated." "What situation?" Dante sighed, running his hand through his hair. "My presence in Baltimore hasn't gone unnoticed. There are people who are interested in my activities here. You're talking about the police, among others." The car stopped in front of an imposing colonial-style house, surrounded by high walls and discreet but visible security cameras. Elena had never seen anything like it. The property looked like something out of a magazine, with perfectly maintained gardens and a marble fountain in the circular entrance. "Whose house is this?" she asked, as they walked toward the main door. "Mine," Dante replied simply. "One of my properties." Elena stopped walking. "You have a house in Baltimore." "I have properties in several cities. It's part of the business." The door was opened by a middle-aged woman with graying hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She greeted Dante in Italian, and he responded in the same language before addressing Elena. "This is Maria, my housekeeper. Maria, this is Elena." Maria studied Elena with perceptive eyes, then nodded approvingly and said something in Italian that made Dante smile for the first time since Elena had gotten in the car. "She said you have kind eyes," Dante translated. Maria is an excellent judge of character. The interior of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors, antique furniture that looked like it had cost a fortune, artwork on the walls that Elena suspected were originals. It was the kind of wealth she had only seen in movies. Dante led her to a book-lined office with a lit fireplace and windows overlooking the gardens. He served 2 glasses of water and sat in a leather armchair, gesturing for her to sit on the sofa across from him. "Elena," he began, "I need to be completely honest with you about what's happening." "I would appreciate that," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the anxiety growing in her chest. "My family, we're not just businessmen. We're part of an organization that has existed for generations, an organization that has its own laws, its own codes, what people call the Mafia." Elena nodded. "You had already hinted at that yesterday. But what I didn't say is that I'm here in Baltimore because there are problems, serious problems. There's a territorial war happening, and my family is at the center of it." Elena felt her mouth go dry. "What kind of war?" "The kind that leaves bodies in the streets," Dante said brutally. "The kind that doesn't distinguish between combatants and innocent civilians. And you're telling me this because..." Dante leaned forward, his blue eyes intense and worried. "Because you were seen with me. Because there are photos of us leaving the restaurant last night. Because whether you want it or not, you're now connected to me in the eyes of very dangerous people." Elena felt the world spin around her. "What photos? Who took photos?" "The federal police. They're investigating me, and now you're in their photographs." Elena stood up abruptly, starting to pace back and forth. "My God, Dante, what have you done? What have you done to me?" "I fell in love," he said simply, and the words made her stop mid-movement. "What?" Dante stood up too, approaching her. "I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a few days. But Elena, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the first night I walked into that bar. There's something about you that makes me want to be a better man." Elena felt tears sting her eyes. "Dante, you can't just say things like that and expect everything to be okay. You put me in danger." "I know, and that's why I'm offering a way out." "What kind of way out?" Dante went to his desk and picked up a thick envelope. "There's $50,000 here. Enough money for you to start a new life anywhere you want. Away from Baltimore, away from me, away from this whole world." Elena looked at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. "You're paying me to leave. I'm trying to protect you. By offering money as if I were a prostitute you want to dismiss?" "No," Dante said, his voice rising for the first time. "That's not it. Elena, you don't understand. There are people who would kill you just to hurt me. There are people who..." He was interrupted by the sound of his phone ringing. Dante looked at the screen, and his expression became even more tense. "I need to take this," he said, leaving the office. Elena was left alone, looking at the envelope on the desk. $50,000. It was more money than she had seen in her entire life. Enough money to return to Boston, to start over, to forget that Dante Romano had ever existed. But the idea of taking the money and running made her feel sick. Not because she didn't need the money, but because it would mean admitting she had been an idiot, that she had fallen in love with a man who saw her as a problem to be solved with money. Dante returned a few minutes later, looking even more tense. "That was my brother," he said. "The situation has gotten worse. There was an incident last night." "What kind of incident?" "Someone tried to attack one of our operations. No one was hurt, but it was a warning. Things are going to escalate quickly now." Elena sat heavily on the sofa. "And you want me to take this money and disappear before things get really ugly?" "I want you to be safe." "And what if I don't want the money? What if I want to stay?" Dante looked at her as if she had completely lost her mind. "Elena, you don't understand what you're saying. This isn't a romantic movie where love conquers all. This is the real world, where people die for much less than being associated with the wrong person." "Then teach me," Elena said, surprising herself. "Teach me about your world. Teach me how to survive in it." "No." "Why?" "Because I don't want you to become like me. I don't want you to lose your goodness, your innocence. I don't want you to have to carry the weight of the things I carry." Elena stood up and approached him. "What if I tell you I lost my innocence a long time ago? What if I tell you I'm tired of being protected, tired of being treated as if I were made of glass?" "Elena, I survived a destroyed engagement. I survived being betrayed by the man I loved. I survived 5 years working jobs I hated to pay bills I could barely afford. I'm stronger than you think." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You don't know what you're asking. Then show me." Before Dante could respond, there was a commotion outside. Loud voices, the sound of cars arriving quickly. Dante immediately positioned himself between Elena and the window, his hand moving inside his jacket. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice suddenly cold and professional. Maria appeared in the office doorway, speaking rapidly in Italian. Dante responded in the same language, then turned to Elena. "We have unexpected visitors," he said. "People who shouldn't know about this property. Police. Worse. Rivals." Elena felt fear run down her spine like ice. "What do we do?" Dante went to a bookshelf and pulled a specific book. The shelf moved, revealing a secret passage. "There's a tunnel that leads to the basement and then to the gardens. Maria will take you to a car that's waiting in the back. And you?" "I'll deal with our visitors." "Dante, no. Come with me." He approached her and held her face in his hands. "Elena, listen to me. Take the money. Leave the city. Forget you ever met me." "I can't do that." "You can, and you will." He kissed her, a desperate and intense kiss, as if it were the last. When they separated, there were tears in Elena's eyes. "I love you," she whispered, the words coming out before she could stop them. Dante closed his eyes for a moment, as if the words were physical pain. "And that's why you need to go." Maria appeared beside Elena, taking her hand and pulling her toward the secret passage. Elena looked back one last time and saw Dante checking a gun he had taken from a desk drawer. "Dante, go," he said without looking at her. "Now!" Elena was pulled into the secret passage, which closed behind her with a final sound. Maria led her through a narrow tunnel lit by emergency lights, then upstairs that led to a basement, and finally to a door that opened to the back gardens. A car was waiting, engine running. Maria said something in Italian to the driver, then turned to Elena and placed the envelope of money in her hands. "Go," Maria said in heavily accented English. "He wants you to go." Elena got in the car, her hands shaking as she held the envelope. As they drove away from the property, she could see flashing lights at the front of the house, could hear sirens in the distance. The driver took her back to her apartment in silence. When they arrived, Elena climbed the stairs as if she were in a dream or perhaps a nightmare. Her apartment seemed even smaller and emptier than before, as if she had seen a different world and could no longer be content with her own. She sat on the bed and opened the envelope. $50,000 in $100 bills, plus a card with a phone number and a handwritten message. If you need anything, call this number. D. Elena held the card against her chest and finally allowed the tears to fall. In a few hours, her life had been turned upside down. She had discovered she was in love with a man who lived in a world of violence and danger, a man who loved her enough to send her away. But as the tears fell, Elena made a decision. She wasn't going to take the money and run. She wasn't going to let Dante face his problems alone. She wasn't going to give up on the first man who had made her heart beat faster in years. She was going to fight for the love she had found, for the man who had awakened a part of her she thought was dead forever. Elena Rossi had spent 5 years building walls around her heart. Now, for the first time, she was willing to tear them down, even if it meant entering a war she didn't understand, in a world that could destroy her. The 4th chapter of her story had ended, but Elena knew the most dangerous part was yet to come. And this time, she wasn't going to run. 3 days had passed since Elena had been taken from Dante's house through the secret passage. 3 days without news, without contact, without knowing if he was alive or dead. The envelope with $50,000 remained untouched on her dining table, like a constant reminder of the choice she refused to make. Elena had called Murphy's and invented an excuse about being sick, unable to face Murphy's worried questions or the curious looks from regular customers. Instead, she spent the days walking through Baltimore's streets, trying to process everything that had happened, trying to understand how her life had changed so drastically in such a short time. On Tuesday morning, she finally decided she could no longer live in uncertainty. She took the card Dante had left in the envelope and dialed the number with trembling fingers. Hello? The voice that answered was female, older, with a slight Italian accent. I'm looking for Dante Romano, Elena said, her voice coming out weaker than intended. There was a long pause. Who's asking? Elena Rossi. Another pause, longer this time. Ah, you're the girl. He talked about you. Is he okay? Please, I just need to know if he's okay. He's alive, the woman said finally. But things are complicated. Can I see him? Dear, that wouldn't be wise. Not now. Please, Elena pleaded. I need to see him. Just once. There was a long pause, then a sigh. There's a cafe called Amore in Little Italy. Style Street, number 231. Be there at 2 in the afternoon. Come alone. The line went dead. Elena looked at the phone, her heart beating fast. She had 4 hours to prepare for what could be the most important meeting of her life. Little Italy was a small but vibrant neighborhood in East Baltimore, known for its authentic restaurants and European atmosphere. Elena had been there a few times with friends, but had never noticed Café Amore. It was a small, discreet establishment, squeezed between a bakery and an antique shop, with only a few tables and a marble counter where an elderly man prepared espresso in a machine that looked decades old. Elena arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table in the back from where she could observe the entrance. She ordered a cappuccino she barely touched, her nerves preventing any appetite. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman entered the cafe. She was about 60 years old, with graying hair elegantly styled, and wore a black wool coat that screamed quality. Her eyes, Elena noticed immediately, were the same intense blue color as Dante's. The woman located her instantly and headed to her table with measured steps. Elena Rossi, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. The woman sat across from her and studied Elena with an intensity that made her feel as if she were being evaluated. I am Isabella Romano, Dante's mother. Elena felt her mouth go dry. I thought his mother had died. That would be Lucia, his first mother. I'm his stepmother, although he considers me his mother in every way that matters. Isabella signaled to the man behind the counter, who immediately brought a double espresso. Dante told me about you. What did he say? That you're stubborn, brave, and completely unsuitable for our world. Isabella took a sip of her espresso. He also said he's in love with you. Elena felt tears sting her eyes. Is he okay? Please, I need to know. He's physically unharmed, Isabella replied carefully. But the events of recent days have left their marks. What events? Isabella studied her for a long moment. You really don't know, do you? You have no idea what happened that night. I know there were problems, that people came to his house. They weren't just people, dear. It was the Torino family from Philadelphia. They came to kill my son. Elena felt the blood freeze in her veins. Kill? Why? Because Dante was negotiating a deal that would have given our family control over certain port operations in Baltimore. The Torinos considered this an invasion of their territory. And what happened? Isabella smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. My son is much smarter than his enemies imagined. He was waiting for them. Elena remembered how Dante had checked his weapon, the professional calm in his voice when he said he would deal with the visitors. Was there violence? There was justice, Isabella corrected. The Torinos sent 4 men. Only one returned to Philadelphia, and only to tell the others what happens when you threaten a Romano. Elena closed her eyes, trying to process the information. The man she had fallen in love with wasn't just involved with the Mafia. He was a killer. I can see what you're thinking, Isabella said softly. You're wondering what kind of monster my son is. That's not it, Elena lied. It is, and you have the right to wonder. But let me tell you something about Dante that he may never tell you. Isabella leaned forward. When he was 16, a business rival of his father kidnapped his younger sister, Sophia. They held her for 3 days, doing things that a 12-year-old girl should never experience. Elena felt nausea rise in her throat. Dante found where they were keeping her, alone. He killed 4 men with his bare hands to save her. Since then, he carries the weight of protecting our family, of ensuring nothing like that happens again. Where is Sophia now? Married, living in Tuscany with 3 beautiful children, completely protected from the world she grew up in. Isabella finished her espresso. My son isn't a monster, Elena. He's a protector. But protection sometimes requires violence. Elena remained silent for a long moment, trying to reconcile the gentle man who had dined with her at the prime rib with the images Isabella had painted. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. Because Dante refuses to see you. He believes you'll be safer away from him, and maybe he's right. But he's also destroying himself inside. I want to see him. Even knowing what he is, what he's done. Elena thought about all the reasons why she should take the money and run. She thought about her simple and safe life, about her dreams of a normal and predictable existence. Then she thought about how she felt when Dante looked at her, as if she were the most precious thing in the world, especially knowing what he is, she said finally. Isabella smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in the expression. You're stronger than he imagines. Where is he? There's a warehouse in Port Covington, Warehouse 47. He'll be there tonight at 9, finalizing some pending business. Isabella stood to leave, then stopped. Elena, if you go there, there will be no going back. Once you fully enter our world, you can never leave. Are you sure that's what you want? Elena thought about her life for the past 5 years. The empty days, the lonely nights, the constant feeling that she was just existing, not living. Then she thought about how she felt with Dante, alive, desired, as if she had finally found her place in the world. I'm sure, she said. Isabella nodded. Then may God protect you, dear, because you're going to need it. Port Covington was an industrial area on the banks of the Patapsco River, full of warehouses, cranes, and the constant smell of salt and diesel. Elena arrived by taxi at 8:45, asking the driver to drop her off a few blocks from Warehouse 47. She wanted time to mentally prepare for what she might find. The warehouse was a massive corrugated metal building with few windows and several loading docks. There were several cars parked outside, black Mercedes, BMWs, vehicles that clearly didn't belong to ordinary dock workers. Elena approached the side entrance, where a large man in a dark suit stood guard. He saw her approaching and immediately positioned himself to block her path. This is a private location, miss, he said, his voice polite but firm. I'm looking for Dante Romano, Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. My name is Elena Rossi. The man studied her for a moment, then spoke into a small radio. A few seconds later, he stepped aside and gestured for her to enter. The interior of the warehouse had been converted into something that looked like a temporary office. There were tables covered with papers, computers, and several men in expensive suits moving with purpose. But Elena only had eyes for one person. Dante was in the center of the space, leaning over a large table, studying what appeared to be architectural plans. He wore a black suit and a white shirt without a tie, and there was a tension in his shoulders that Elena could see even from a distance. When he looked up and saw her, his expression went through a series of emotions: surprise, joy, then concern, and something that could have been anger. He said something quick to the men around him, who immediately dispersed, leaving them alone in the center of the warehouse. "Elena," he said, his voice low and controlled, "what are you doing here?" "I came to see you," she replied, walking toward him. "I came to tell you I'm not going to take your money and run." "You should have left," Dante said, but Elena could see the relief in his eyes. "It's not safe for you to be here. It's not safe for me to be anywhere, apparently. Not since I fell in love with you." Dante closed his eyes as if the words were physical pain. "Elena, you don't understand what you're saying." "I understand perfectly." Elena approached until she was inches from him. "Your mother told me about Sophia. She told me about what you did to protect her." "Isabella shouldn't have." "She told me because she wanted me to understand who you really are. And I understand, Dante. You're not a monster. You're a man who does difficult things to protect the people you love." Dante looked at her with an intensity that made her tremble. "What if I tell you I can't protect you? What if I tell you that being with me means you'll always be in danger? Then I'll tell you I'd rather be in danger with you than safe without you." Dante reached out and touched her face, as if making sure she was real. "You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking for a chance for us to be together, to build something real. Elena, my world. There are no happy endings in my world." "Then let's create our own ending," she said, covering his hand with hers. "Together." Dante studied her for a long moment, and Elena could see the battle happening in his eyes. The desire to keep her safe, fighting against the desire to keep her close. Finally, he leaned in and kissed her, a desperate kiss full of promises. When they separated, there were tears in both their eyes. "If we stay together," Dante said, "you'll have to learn to live in my world. You'll have to learn rules you never imagined existed." "Then teach me," Elena replied. "Teach me everything." Dante smiled, and for the first time in days, it was a genuine smile. That could take a lifetime. "I have a lifetime to give," Elena said. Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he would never let her go. "Then welcome to the Romano family, Elena Rossi." Elena nestled in his arms, finally feeling she had found her place in the world. It wouldn't be easy. She knew that. There would be dangers, challenges, moments when she would wonder if she had made the right choice. But as Dante held her, as she felt the strong beating of his heart against hers, Elena knew she had made the only choice that mattered. She had chosen love over safety, passion over predictability. She had chosen to live. 6 months later, Elena Romano, she had legally changed her surname, was standing on the terrace of the house she now shared with Dante in Tuscany, watching the sunset over the hills covered with vineyards. She had learned to speak basic Italian, had met Dante's entire extended family, had even learned to shoot, a skill Dante insisted she master. Her life was completely different from anything she had imagined. It was more dangerous, more complex, but also richer and more full of love than she had ever dreamed possible. Murphy had sold the bar and moved to Ireland, using the money Dante had invested in the business. Jenny had gotten her big break in New York, and Elena had found her big break in love. It wasn't the kind of love story she had read in books or seen in movies. It was more complicated, more dangerous, more real, but it was hers. And as Dante approached from behind, wrapping her in his arms and whispering "Ti amo" in her ear, Elena knew she had made the right choice. She had sworn never to love again, but sometimes the best promises are the ones we break, and sometimes breaking a promise is the only way to find our true happiness. 2 years later, Elena was sitting in the same cafe in Little Italy, where she had first met Isabella. But now she wasn't alone. A 6-month-old baby slept peacefully in her arms, her dark hair and blue eyes a perfect combination of her parents. Isabella sat across from her, smiling at her grandson with obvious adoration. "How is Lucia?" Isabella asked, extending a finger for the baby to grasp. "Perfect," Elena replied, looking at the daughter who had been named after Dante's first mother. "Absolutely perfect. And Dante, still overprotective, still impossible, still the love of my life." Isabella laughed. "Some men never change." "I wouldn't want him to change," Elena said, and realized it was true. Dante was still dangerous, still lived in a world of shadows and secrets. But he was also the man who woke up every morning grateful to have her in his life, who treated her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Do you regret it?" Isabella asked softly. "Choosing our family, our world." Elena looked at the daughter in her arms, thought about the husband waiting for her at home, about the life they had built together against all odds. "Not for a second," she replied. And it was true. Elena Rossi had entered Murphy's tavern as a waitress who had sworn never to love again. She had left as Elena Romano, wife of a Mafia boss, mother of his daughter, and the happiest woman in Baltimore. Sometimes, the best loves are those that arrive when we least expect them, brought by blue-eyed strangers who change our lives forever. And sometimes, the only way to find our true happiness is to have enough courage to break the promises we made to protect ourselves. Elena had broken her promise to never love again, and it had been the best decision of her life.